Welcome. Giancarlo Esposito is joining us in studio. Parish is the new series that premieres Sunday, 10:15 on AMC and on AMC Plus. Welcome, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. Excited to be here.
Yes, we're excited to have you.
Excited to talk about this show.
Yeah.
Pretty cool show. Very exciting, very eclectic, very interesting for the everyman of our world.
Yes. Do you find that people have expectations going in when they see that you're playing a character that is again finding himself on the other side of the law, that there's expectations that people now have for
Absolutely.
of you?
Once you play a quintessential bad guy who becomes iconic,
Yeah.
then people want or expect that. And I like to switch it up with every role I play, so I look to find nuance and in a new character. And this particular one is one that is written in a way and conceived in a way, as I'm an executive producer and the co-idealist behind this project, was to make him an everyman. I became interested in the plight of the everyman, and when I say that, I mean working class person who is not a hero, who is not a star, who during the pandemic was crushed.
Yeah.
I looked around me, and for me, I thought, how long can I last? I got 4 kids, 2 households. I'm divorced, a single father of 4 girls, kids in college, and I literally cried, put my hands on my head and cried. Called the accountant, how long can I last? He said, you could last maybe about 8 months. Maybe you have a year, maybe less, depending on how you spend. And then I pulled myself up by my bootstraps and said, what do you do? I thought of Thomas Edison. I thought of Tesla. What did they do when they went bankrupt?
Yeah.
I've been bankrupt before. Didn't want to go back there. So I said, I can't live in fear. And it all came to me. You build. You build. You plan for the future. You plan for when it's over. Just like the actors and writers strike. What was I doing during that time? Hunkering down, working on this project, so that when it ended, I could sell it, and then I could start making it.
All right, what do you think about when you play the everyman? Because that's really interesting. Like, you don't notice how good somebody is at it until you are pointed out that they're doing it. Like, I think Martin Sheen plays an amazing everyman, just like a regular person who can steal a scene because he's just so good. What do you do to make it like a relatable person like that?
It's in the writing. This particular guy, as I was in this position maybe in 2008 and 9, I had a family living in Connecticut beyond my means. The bank was foreclosing on my house. My marriage was in a shambles. I was working hard, very, very hard, so I felt like I could have been a bricklayer or I could have been a dishwasher, which I've done before. This character, Gray Parish, has a black car service. He is an American. He's American-made from New Orleans is where we place the show. And another investigation is how his nemesis in the show, who he eventually goes to work with, who is a bad human being, has gotten all of his success through ill-gotten means. And Gracie and Parish just wants to do everything between the lines and be above board, but he's not making it as an American. And so that's part of the theme of our show, too. We have immigrants who come to this country, and they're making it through whatever concessions they've gained or been granted. So what do I do as a human being? I make that person maybe not college educated, but someone who has mother wit, someone who knows the streets, someone who has good intentions, someone who always has a moral and integrated or integral way of handling himself. So he has a moral turpitude, a moral balance, a moral kind of code that he lives by. He's not going to cross that. In our story, this gentleman has lost his son. So he's, deeply depressed and in a traumatic mental state. And all these things crash down on him. And he wants to support his family. That's what really does it. What's your intention? What's the guy want to do? He wants to take care of his kids and his wife.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to me that you were talking about how you found that and being in the pandemic and literally thinking about, okay, how do I survive? How do I continue to support my family? Because a minute ago, even you described Gus Fring as iconic. And I think that people, when they start thinking about actors who have played iconic characters, you just go, well, yeah, they're set for life then. You know what I mean? Like he did Gus Fring? You kidding me? He's good forever. And you're sitting there saying, like, just years later, calling the accountant's going maybe 8 months.
Look, the assumption is that those who are on television and in the movies are rich.
Right.
And that they'll always be rich. And I think that assumption plays into my visionary focus to straighten out my stinking thinking is to attract that I always will be rich. Doesn't mean I have it all now in the pot, but it does mean that there'll always be work that will fulfill the need that I have. So when you think about it, like you and I, we've never really starved, right? We're still here. We look pretty healthy,
And
right?
I'm fat.
He's eating. He's eating.
You got something to live off of. You know what I mean? I mean, that's doing fine. You know? I mean, you know that in the old days, if you were heavy, rotund, or plump, that was a sign of affluence.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, truly.
Right.
So, you know, it's a funny thing that I thought of because I said 8 months is more than the regular guy.
Right.
Right.
And that, to me, was a blessing.
Yes.
And when I looked at it as a blessing, I said, so you got 8 months to build. You got 8 months to figure it out. You got 8 months to do whatever you need to do. And I worked on starting a podcast, which is going to get underway soon, on a graphic novel called The Venetian, which just got picked up by Simon & Schuster. So we're writing that in tandem with a script to make a movie at the same time, same platform. You know, two bangs for your buck. And I worked to create Parish.
So when things are going well and everything and money's coming in because that's the life of an actor, right? Like sometimes things are going well, sometimes things slow down. How do you stop yourself from thinking this is life now? You know, because when you have that money coming in, you go, oh, this is who I am, this is how I'm living, and this is how it's going to be, and then reality can hit you hard.
It's interesting for me. I have to keep track of reality. It's just like, you know, I go on the street and I can't walk a half a block without 10 selfies and people knowing who I am, and that can puff you up in your brain. Mm-hmm. But you know who you really are.
Yeah.
So you can't live in the illusion of who you really are. Like I'm a worker bee. Mm-hmm. That's who I am. You know, my father was a working class Italian stagehand. You know, he worked with his hands. I have a lot of that mentality as well. My kids look at me and say, you gave me the work ethic. But it's in the mind. Like if I walk around and think it's just easy, I know that what I do today determines my tomorrow. Mm-hmm. I tell people that when I go to colleges and universities, I lecture, I do speaking engagements because this acting thing, you know, it's a boon, it's good, but there's an other part of me that I want to share that can also bring in some remuneration. But primarily I want to share that. But I realize I've created an engine that can withstand the storm. Like there may be another strike. I see strike for an actor. Yeah. You know, so I can't live as a legend in my own mind. Hey, look, I'd love to be, but it's a joke. It's a play of consciousness, right? I mean, for me, I get it. I get how people see me. But if I see myself the way they see me all the time, then I'm not living with my feet on the ground.
It's very evolved.
Well, yes, it is. And the good thing is the strike didn't affect me very much. I don't get a lot of acting work. So they said there was a strike. I'm like, when? They're like, it happened already. I'm like, oh. I've loved you since, I think 88 was School Days. And you did a lot of stuff with Spike Lee. And I always thought he was such an underrated. We were talking before about his camera work. And what do you think that he does that's so innovative that doesn't get recognized? Because I think he never got the credit he should have gotten.
I think he's a provocative filmmaker who has linked up not only his dialogue, but he's linked up and tapped into a feeling of discontent, a feeling of disorder, a feeling, you know, of unacceptance from black to white when he started. You started to feel his essence, and he transferred that into a certain way of looking at the world that is very Spike-like. He's starting a movie yesterday with Denzel Washington here in this city. What I love about Spike is he's committed to New York. He's committed to Brooklyn. He loves people, and he stayed the same. So I think what he's done in respect to his camera work and how he has movement in his films is indicative of a New York style that I think you and I recognize.
What was a young Spike like? I mean, is it, like you said, has he not changed much at all?
He's grown so deeply and become such a magnanimous, loving human being, but not one who's not without power. Right? We think when we say those words like he's gone soft. Mm-hmm. You know, we're New Yorkers now. Yeah. Right? We're a different breed. Yeah. Like I get it wherever I go in the world, people feel the kind of gravitas that we carry. That doesn't have anything to do with me being an actor. That has something to do with me being a New Yorker. We're certain kind of people. We're direct. We're straightforward. We look you in the eye. You know, we don't take any BS. And I think Spike has grown up in this environment, and it's affected him. A young Spike was really the coach. He loves sports. Like, who doesn't love sports in New York? Yeah, we got our team. We're going to fight about it. We're going to agree to disagree. And you're going to go to the Mets game, and I'm going to go to the Yankee game.
Yeah.
That's how it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think a young Spike was inquisitive and really curious, and a more defined Spike is someone who has used all that he's lived to define himself in a more clearer way.
Was he confident? Because that's always, like, I find that very intriguing, the idea that Spike can do things his own way. But when you go back to when he's a kid, he's fresh out of college, he's already doing things his own way and working with really seasoned actors.
He was always very confident. I mean, look, the guy writes his scripts by hand. Right. So he's putting his own spirit. I think when you write things by hand, your spirit is going onto the page. He was always confident, and he always felt as if he wanted to do it the way he saw it. So when people don't agree with that or don't want to fund that, he just goes somewhere else and finds the funding somewhere else. That's a confident human being. He's not afraid. There's never been any fear about Spike, which is something that I've really learned from. And it's not a posturing, or it's something that's inside of him. It's just something he knows. And I think it's that self-validation that we all can learn from. That's a hard one, to be self-validated, to ask for what you want and do it the way you want to do it.
Yeah, because if it doesn't work out, then you have no one to blame but yourself.
Right.
Well, we're in a culture today, I think, where people don't want to take responsibility. Like I made a mistake. That's a hard thing to say. We're supposed to do it all right and know everything because we have the phone. We can look up Google and all this. But, sometimes we just don't get it right. And it's that beauty of that imperfection that makes us human.
But you sound like me when I got caught cheating.
Me too. Get out. It was over. Wait, no, honey. No, it's done. No, honey, no. It's over.
It's my low self-esteem. I'm afraid no one will ever offer again.
That's right.
This is the human essence.
When you went broke, what like, because I remember 2008 was a tough time and it was terrifying. When you had that happen and there was depression, what was the first thing that made you think, okay, there's a way out? Like, what was the first? Was it a project you landed, or what made you think, like, hey, there's a way to get out?
The first thing that had me think there was a way out was my wife's father, God rest his soul, Pops McManigal, was in insurance. And so I asked her, I started poking around, how much I'm insured for. And then she told me. And my way out in my brain was, I said, hey, do you get life insurance to, if someone commits suicide, do they get the bread? And my wife said, well, that's kind of tricky. And I went, well, yeah, man. She had no idea why I was asking her this stuff. Yeah. And then I thought, I just started scheming. If I got somebody to knock me off, death through misadventure, they would get the insurance. I had 4 kids. I wanted them to have a life. Like, it was a hard moment in time. I literally thought of self-annihilation so that they could survive. That's how low I was. So that was the first inkling that there was a way out, but I wouldn't be here to be available to it or be a part of it or be there for my kids. Then, I started to think that's not viable because the pain I would cause them would be lifelong, and lifelong trauma that would just extend the generational trauma with which I'm trying to move away from. The light at the end of the tunnel was Breaking Bad. I had a few little things before that to start to recover, but Breaking Bad was the light. And so I did a guest spot on that show, and even then, after doing one guest spot, they had me come back for another. They offered me a contract. I said no.
Really?
Yeah, it empowered me. And the reason I said no was because they ended the 3rd season. And they wanted me to sign a contract where I had 6 months. They would have given me some money, which would have been great. It would have been a holding fee. But I would have to go to them to say, can I do the Disney project? Can I do this? Can I do that? And I was in fear that they would say no. And I also didn't know what their intention was. And this was the first step to my empowerment. Because it wasn't about the money. Yeah, I was broke. I was bankrupt, all these things. It was really about me finding my own strength to know that I could create my own projects. That was the beginning of Parish, to be honest with you. I didn't know it, but the strength to think that, okay, I'm going to say no to this. But I said to them, look, gracefully, I love this show. Let me know what the storyline might be when you come back in 6 months. And if you still feel the same and you're in the writer's room, you have something for me, I certainly will consider. And they did come back, and I had a contract, and I was on the road to finally starting to recover, put some money away. And then, poof, the rise, the Emmy nomination, all these things happened. But that was the beginning of understanding that I had enough confidence in myself and power. I'm confident as a human being. I'm Italian. So, I'm bombastic. I'm all those things an Italian are. And then couple this dark skin with it, you got a volatile combination, baby.
Plus New York.
Plus New York. But I felt as if that was the beginning of me going, I can conceive a project or adapt a project to my needs, take it and sell it. This Parish has been an 8-year journey. I had it at FX. I have a partner in A&E who went all the way with me. It's now on AMC, a dream network to be with. But we had gone to them earlier many years ago, and Thumbnail Sketch wasn't really their cup of tea. And here we are 8 years later. They got in the trenches with me, and we made this piece. But it taught me, here's my line in Parish. I'm tired of being a passenger in my own life. Take the wheel. I took the wheel. Here we are. This show is fantastic. I can't wait for you guys to see it.
I mean, it's not only amazing, though, that you were able to create this show out of that, but the fact that you said no to the contract, and instead of them going like, okay, well, then we're going to move in a different direction, whatever, they come back to you, and the response is this iconic character arc that is like beyond, I think, anything you could have conceived.
Absolutely.
Is amazing. And it's like, oh, sometimes when you say no, the right thing happens.
There's a reason I said no. I hadn't talked to Vince Gilligan enough.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to know what they wanted because I didn't want to be a stereotype. Breaking Bad wouldn't have been the same without Gustavo Fring, but Gustavo Fring wouldn't have been the same if I played him like a copy of Tony Soprano.
Right.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I played this guy. I talked to Vince, and I said, I don't want to play a stereotype. I want this guy to be a real human being with dark and light. I want you to try to see beyond the crack of who he is. Yeah, he was stern. Yeah, he kept it close to the vest. Yeah, he was that guy who you probably looked at and thought he would never do his own dirty work until 401, box cutter.
Yeah.
And the dude was totally capable.
Yeah.
Stealth, in fact.
Yes.
Right? So that's a different guy. And somewhere in episode 4, Vince Gilligan's word to me, he said, what an amazing job you've done. All of a sudden, we feel the audience liking Gus.
Yeah. Well, there's a discipline to it, too, to the storytelling, because it's like that's in there, but you didn't pull the trigger until way after we've gotten to know this character as we think we know him, and then, boom, now we're on this other road that you didn't see
We're
coming.
on this other road. I mean, I'm in a freaking, I'm in a chicken restaurant with a yellow suit on. I'm a chicken man.
Yeah.
I'm a chicken man. So how long is this going to last? With a clip-on tie, which I used to wear in military school. I'm the chicken man. I'm a chicken man. I could not wait to get into some monochromatic clothes and kick some butt. I could wait. When I put a plastic bag over that guy's head, choked him out. I mean, that's heavy-duty stuff.
Sure. I've paid to have people do that to me.
Yeah, so did somebody else who's not around either. I liked him. He was a good guy in the closet with the, sorry. Did I say that? Nice. What was he doing?
You have such a crazy career. Like you started Taps, which was a movie that is so underrated historically with Tom Cruise and Sean Penn and Timothy Hutton. Did you do any? I don't remember. Will you have any scenes with George C. Scott, or did you get to interact with him at all?
Oh my goodness, I sure did. I have some major stories about George C. I went to military school for many years, and so I knew the rhythm of a military academy. And going down to King of Prussia, PA, and working at Valley Forge Military Academy was an interesting adventure. I had met George C. when I was doing a play at the Uris Theater when I was 13, and he came and put me in a chokehold in the restaurant one night and said, I saw you up there. I saw you. You were a fantastic kid. And I could recognize his voice. He said, and he turned around and faced me, and it's George C. Scott, 6'2", 275, big guy. Yeah. And he says to me, don't do it. Don't do it. And I was like confused. Unless you really have to. That advice stuck with me my whole life. So years later, I did The Changeling. I was an extra, Lincoln Center. I walked by him, didn't say a word to him. I was an extra. Walked by, he walked by me, blah, blah, blah. Years after that, he's doing Taps, and I get a chance to really talk to him. I mean, what a guy. Guy did 3-page speech. Every time he did it, it was the same. Every time he, on a certain word, touched his lapel, touched his hat on the exact same line, take his jacket off between takes, disappear between the trucks. I followed him one day. Where is he going? What's he doing? Is he drinking? Oh, yeah, he was drinking a little bit. He had locked the sauce a little bit. Sure. He must be drinking over there between those trucks. Let me follow his ass. So I follow him. He sits down at a little table. The driver of the truck gets out of the truck. There's a chess set up. They're in the middle of a game. and he's playing chess in between. Never saw him look at a page, never refer to a line, knew it by heart, consummate professional. What an incredible actor. So Taps was a special movie for me because I learned from him, and I learned from I met a bunch of Hollywood actors. That was my entree to, Tim Hutton, friend for life, came to my star ceremony and made a speech for me. Sean Penn, another friend for life. The Hollywood boys who were the privileged actors, right? I'm a New Yorker, me and Evan Handler. Right? We're from New York, and these guys are pulling Hollywood antics, and they had their way of doing things, and it was very different from the way we as New York actors did things, so we went with it. We had a scene around a table, and we're all sitting around a table, and it's a tense moment. We got to make a decision as cadets, at Valley Forge, and these guys, I feel the table is rocking. I feel people kicking me. I'm like, what's going on under the table? They're trying to get your blood up. And I looked and I said, hey guys, I don't really need that. It's called acting, my boy. I don't really,
yeah, you don't have to.
I don't really need that.
Yeah.
But good guys all. Great movie we made.
Isn't that there was that story about Olivier and Dustin Hoffman that everybody thought he was being a dick to him when he said, "Why don't you because he had stayed up all night to get into character?" And Olivier said, "Why don't you just try acting?" But he was kidding. But people retold it as if he was shitting on him. But he was just joking with him. But he just acted.
Dustin Hoffman is. I just worked with him, and I'm so blessed to have been able to. Megalopolis with Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah.
I play Mayor Cicero, and Dustin is the political Berman, who is the political head of my units. So I had a chance to be on set with Dusty, and in his 80s, still performing beautifully. And it was a great opportunity to be able to be around yet another master. Who I could learn quite a bit from, but who I don't push up on. And so one day I come in because he had no clue who I was, and why should you? And I love that. But he kind of liked me, so we had been talking and talking. And so I had a week off, came back. I said, "Where you been?" He said, "I had a week off too. Guess what I did?" I said, "What did you do?" "I saw you." I said, "What do you mean? I saw you?" I said, "You saw me on what?" "I turned my TV and there you are. So now I know who you are." I was like, good. That makes me happy. Yeah. I've known who you are for a long time.
But isn't it crazy? You have something now that most of them would know. Very few people wouldn't know you from Breaking Bad or something. It's
iconic is the word. It's not an overstatement by any stretch.
It really is. It's an iconic character, and everybody kind of knows it. And the fact that he didn't know shows you how kind of above everything Dustin Hoffman is. The fact that he doesn't watch anything.
His kids. All of a sudden, the third time he came, he says, "I guess what." I was like, "What? You saw me again?" He said, "No, but my kids. Will you meet my kids? My kids are huge fans of yours." He's a darling human being.
Yeah.
I really love him. My children tell me that I have a great fan base with young people, and it's a really, really cool thing to see them get excited because their friends can relate to me. So it's I've had a great career, and I hope to continue to be able to be relatable.
Well, we were talking about, it's called acting. You could just act. But the thing about Gus, I think specifically, is that just watching that character, there was this thing that everybody kind of wanted to act like him, like the quiet intimidation and the absolute control over everything. Every guy on some level wants to be that guy. So if it's that appealing to try to be that guy watching, is that something you can just leave on set and go home, or do you find yourself like, I'm getting into Gus mode again. I got to get out of that.
Oh my goodness, great question. I was walking down the street and I passed a play Denzel was doing a few years ago. Anyway, I forget the title of the play. Kenny Leon was directing, and I walked by, and African Americans, many of them came to the Breaking Bad world a little bit late. No harm, no foul, but they got on the bandwagon. So I'm walking by the theater, and they're loading in, and all these dudes are like, "Oh my God. Oh my God, Gus, take a picture." And I said, "Yeah, Giancarlo." "Oh yeah, we know, but Gus." yeah, Giancarlo, yeah, right, but Gus. And I was going to an audition for Far Cry, and I did not want to bring Gus into the Far Cry world. Same guy in a way, controlling the chaos, dictator, different character, but. So I leave these guys after taking selfies, and I walk away, and all of a sudden my body's more erect, and I'm walking down the street.
You literally just did it with your jacket. I just saw you.
And I became Gus, and I stopped, and I started laughing. And I said, "No, shake it off, dude. You're not Gus. They love Gus. You can get him. You can take him back in a moment, but leave him behind for the moment.
Yeah.
Let him go. You don't have to be him.
Yeah, because I guess because you've had enough of a career where you're not going to be typecast at this point because you played so many different guys. But there's so many people that just get pegged as one thing early on, and it's just like it's really hard for them to be seen as anything else in their career.
Absolutely, and I think it's up to me as an actor to keep recreating that. Because for me, after Gustavo, the first question when I walked into that room for Far Cry is, if you want Gus, that's not. I'm not the guy, right? And I said, yes, this guy's a dictator, has all these qualities, but I'm not going to recreate Gus in that mode. So it's up to me to be able to think in my brain and be able to allow myself to do something else. But that takes creativity, and it takes work.
And confidence, by the way, to not go, yeah, I'm going to do this thing that actually worked and not use it as like a safety line.
Yeah. Exactly. I kind of shun that. I've had I played some heavies in the same lane, so to speak. I mean, Moff Gideon, you have something I want. Right. A different guy in that world. Stan Edgar, you are not a god. You are simply bad product. Like, there's a difference in those guys. Stan Edgar's the cool cucumber. Nothing scares him. Homelander doesn't scare him. These superheroes with human emotions who could crisp him in a second, they're nothing. Right? So he has an intellectual sense about him that understands the human condition.
Right. But it's amazing what you just did between those two with your voice. Like, that you can hear immediately. You said one sentence, and those were two clear-cut different characters. Is that something that you will practice when you figure out, okay, this is how I'm going to play this character? Do you start figuring out how he sounds? Do you start talking like him, or does that come naturally to you?
No, I start with a whisper. I first allow the words on the page to inspire me, because that allows me to hear, and I read it over and over and over again, and the rhythmic intonation of the words on the page, if I can say it that way, how that sounds to my ear. And then I start to whisper the words and put them together. And in the whisper comes the voice. And then I'll add a little salt and pepper, a little tahini, sure. As I go to figure out where does his tone lie? Is it up here? Is it down here? And then I'll allow that to flow naturally from me. Like, I came from musical comedy on Broadway, did 13 Broadway musicals. So for me, the music, acting is music. Was talking to Lawrence Fishburn, as a great play downtown. That's how we do it in the movies. And saw it last night, and Bradley Cooper was backstage, and we were all just standing around talking after the show. A great one-man show play that he wrote. And it was a fascinating moment for us all to be together. But it was really thinking about how you translate something. It's physical, it's auditory, it sounds a certain way, and how you allow that to join your natural rhythm. Lawrence does it beautifully in his play. And
do you have when you do interviews like this, do you go out going like, okay, I have to be jovial, I have to be more, like, I have to be, more myself, so they don't think I'm more this person? Like, is there that much thought put into it, or are you comfortable just letting go?
I'm comfortable with letting go because I'm more mature than I used to be. The first time I sat in this chair was a couple of years ago. And I'm always nervous because I always wonder, are they going to ask intelligent questions? Who am I talking to? My life's been on, speed for the past month in doing what I'm doing. So when I walk in, I take the temperature of the room. I just did the Today Show. I walk in, you want to do this promo, as I put the camera on you, but it gives me a chance to be in the room with everybody else, to see what their energy is this day. And I try to hold on to what my energy is. So I never used to take my own temperature. I'd wake up and feel I'm an actor. I come in and beyond. That's what I do. But you're not gonna sense me. You're gonna sense something I'm playing. And so I've always loved radio because it's disarming in a way, because it's not a big huge camera in front of your face, and because you're able to. You have to use your voice to really get your message out there, and that's all you have. But you can even hear in the voice when someone's posturing, bullshitting. You can hear it. You can feel it.
Yeah, you sense it almost. It's a weird thing, and you couldn't prove it in court. You just feel it. You kind of know, like, that person is bullshitting. How long did you live with Lawrence Fishburn?
We lived in L.A. together for about 6 months on Vignes Street in downtown L.A. Had to step on one of those apple boxes, but it was really one of those round things that those guys on the street play, those white buckets. had to step on that to go into the apartment through a window. He had said, "Come live with me. I got this place. Going to fix it up." I was like, "Fix it up?" Concrete floors, concrete walls. They were working on the entrance, so there was no door, and we had to get in and out through a window. The toilet didn't work. It was a mess. This is going back a long time ago. We're like brothers. We went back so very far. So we lived together for a while on a work search, trying to get work in California, and neither of us got that first job we were up for. He had been working a long time since a kid, and so had I. So we had been lifers. So we had a synchronicity and still do.
Is there a disappointment when you build characters like you've built, but specifically Gus, and at the end of his story, he literally is exploded. He blows up. Like there is no, you misunderstood. He didn't really blow up. He can come back next season. There's a finality to the end of Gus on that show. Is there something when you look at that script, do you go, I mean, couldn't he just go to the hospital or something? Does he need to blow up? Do we need to say?
Well, in an earlier storyline, we have, him poisoning Don Eladio.
Yeah.
And, going into and himself and going in the bathroom, putting his finger in his throat and throwing up. So certainly when I got the inkling and Vince did speak to me about it, I thought, well, can't he just have that doctor again?
Get skin grafts real quick.
Play-Doh, skin grafts, come back. It's a sad moment when you got to leave something behind, and when there's a finality in that death that you're not moving into the future with this show.
Right.
But it's also very, very freeing. Kind of surrenders you to know that you're going to go on to something else.
Right.
Yeah. And that's kind of a great thing too, because in a way, any character you play is, and it extends your career as this one did mine. It's also a ball and chain, because how do I do it this season as good as I did it last season? Is the accent going to be the same?
Wow.
Is my tone of my voice going to be the same? Is my look going to be the same? Better Call Saul, I was a little bit heavier. And I justified being heavier weight-wise because it was pre-Breaking Bad.
Sure.
Yeah.
So he had less stress. He was a different guy. But the truth was, I broke my ankle skiing, and I had a plate and 23 screws in my ankle, and I couldn't run like I used to run. And getting a little older, I got a little heavier. So when I look back at pictures of some pictures, I go, oh, God, no. So it's all that. How do I get in his greatest moment? In Gustavo's greatest moment, how do I equal that? Yeah. How do I do that?
Yeah.
And that's a trap.
Yeah.
So you can't try to match anything you've done before. You got to create it new every day, and that's who I am as an actor. So letting it go in a way is like freedom.
I have one quick question, too, before you go. Is there anything that you did that you wish you had done better?
Wow. That's a good question.
Because I look at back. I despise watching myself, which is great because most people feel that way about me. But watching.
Be an easy question for you.
Yeah, exactly. but is there anything you
see all of the above,
and not because of anybody else? Like, is there anything you look back at and go, God, I wish I was.
Here's my answer. All of it.
Really?
Wow.
All of it. I feel like every year that I mature more, I let go of the BS. I'm straighter and to the point. I have a very clear-cut way of working. I'm not a chatty guy on set. I want to talk about football, baseball, any other crap. We got one day, 14 hours to get these amount of scenes. TV's really fast. Why would I want to be on my phone playing Scrabble in between takes? Yeah. What is that? Why would I want to indulge my non-attention span? So right. I'm all in because I want to knock it out of the park. So I say all of it jokingly. It's often, man, they shoot me and I shoot because they come and ask you for me now because it's such respect. I'm such a star, right? They're like, would you like to have your side shot first, or would you like to go second? And so half the time, no matter what side is shot first or second, I want to go back and shoot it again because I feel like, listen, time. You guys have been doing this a long time, right? You really relax with each other. You got great energy, right? You look each other in the eye, you talk, you have a lot of people in this room. Time, in a way, allows an experience that is visceral, right? You don't have to have the nerves and get it recreated. You don't have to, when it blends you into the vibration of what you're doing in a more sublime fashion. And so it takes time to get comfortable in a room or with anybody, on a set, strangers, all that. So I say, all of it because that time tenderizes the situation.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, Parish premieres Sunday, 10:15 p.m. on AMC and AMC Plus. You can see what Giancarlo has been up to for years now.
Yeah, it's great.
Cooking,
we watched the pilot.
building this thing.
Really
Cooking is
good.
probably the wrong word.
That's right. We'll take it. I'll take it.
Yeah, it's very good, man. Great
Yeah,
job.
awesome.
Well acted, well written. Really, really nice. We saw the pilot. It was great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for
course.
coming by, man.
Thank you.